Community, The Life, Death, and Rebirth of Pierce Hawthorne by Pillar of Garbage. Now, already out of the gate, I kind of agree with Chevy Chase more than I do with Dan Harmon, so this is already like a super hot take, I guess, but Chevy Chase was angry at Dan that his character never evolved, that somehow this guy was a racist misogynist that hung out with two black people, a woman, or two black people, three women, and just and I can't remember where Abed's from. He's from like Gaza or something like that. So a Middle Eastern guy. So he's friends with this diverse group. Has been for literally years at this point, and even is like almost a surrogate father to Jeff Winger throughout most of the show. Is pretty much a good guy in almost every situation, unless his friends are leaving him out and being assholes to him, in which case then he turns dickish. But they just say, Pierce the dickish in the intro, and then they expect you to just agree that Pierce is an asshole. But most of the time when Pierce is in the show, he's actually one of the nicest, best characters in the show. For real. I mean, whenever Troy doesn't have a place to go, he literally just offers him a room in his house for nothing.
NBC's sitcom Community was many things. Very, very many things, but one thing it wasn't was static. Actors, writers, showrunners all came and went. The show seemed determined above all else to shake up its tone, look, and just vibe at every chance it got. And this dynamism was equally present when it came to character. Some of the main cast, changed drastically over the 6 years they spent at
what's funny is every time anybody talks about Community, and they're like, man, the show got worse when Pierce left, or the show got worse whenever Troy left. Nobody ever says that about Shirley. I think Shirley is like everybody's least favorite character.
Dale.
You seem smarter than me when I met you.
Thank you.
Or four in this case, because I want to talk about Pierce Hawthorne. The ups and downs, the birth, death, and rebirth of this character, and see if we can make some sense of it all. What's the core of this character, and why does and doesn't he work?
Yeah.
Now, if you're thinking, geez, Pillarman, this is kind of coming out of left field given the videos you've been making the past few weeks, sure, I guess it kind of is. But this channel's sort of like the Delta Cubes. I don't like to be pinned down by a dean or by a predictable video creation
Delta
niche.
Cubes!
Delta Cubes! Delta Cubes! Delta Cubes! Delta Cubes! Delta Cubes!
Oh, it's also because this guy John Turvin's requested
one of the worst episodes in the entire show, by the way.
a video on Pierce for like a while. And if people ask me to do a specific video enough times, if it's about something I've already, watched, I usually end up doing it, albeit months later.
Yeah, I feel
Season
that.
1. Pierce 101. The Pierce we meet in the pilot is actually not a complete joke. He's still mostly a joke, but he does seem to be a semi-respected businessman. We're given no real reason to question this. He comes across as offensive and a bit harassy at times, even by 2010 standards, which is a little bit of a yikes, but it is mitigated by the fact that he isn't really being a prick on purpose.
No, he's just an old man who doesn't understand, and he constantly learns and tries to grow. But the creators of the show never allowed that because they had a message to push.
He's just lived a privileged, sheltered life, and can't really conceive of lifestyles and lived experiences beyond his own. He's self-absorbed, and from the start we get
I
a
love
pretty
that
good
scene
sense
where
of
he
his
goes to handshake him and then... yeah, that's
the
so
related
good.
major flaw, insecurity. This is probably the part of Pierce's characterization that will remain the most consistent going forward.
I could reach into a man's soul and unravel it with one tug.
Cool. Hit me.
You're bald.
You're bald.
So are you.
So are you.
He's got this compulsion to be liked and respected by others. He wants them to think he's cool, and ironically, this impulse for instant appreciation often gets in the way of developing actual meaningful relationships with the study group.
I'm getting rid of Britta.
What am I doing?
I'm getting rid of the bee.
She's a no good bee.
What do you mean? Whenever he did this, he gained immense respect by Britta because she misunderstood when he fought with Vaughn.
Getting rid of Britta.
But there is something that mitigates this too. The unique quality which characterizes Season 1 Pierce, as opposed to his characterization in later years, is his willingness and ability to change.
Yeah.
Or try and change.
Pierce.
Yeah, he would be changing if the writers weren't pushing their agenda, because clearly the character had grown throughout the show. And Chevy Chase was angry about this. Also, Dan Harmon was known for being an alcoholic pervert, so on set, and being also an asshole. And Chevy Chase called him out because one day Dan Harmon, in front of everybody, including Chevy Chase's wife and child, talked shit on Chevy Chase and told him he was like all this different kinds of stuff. So Chevy, being an old man, left a voicemail instead of a text and told him like, I'll fucking fight you right now. Don't ever talk to me like that in front of my wife and kid again. Like this is bullshit. And Dan Harmon also at one point in a Christmas party had everyone get together, all the actors, and had them all say fuck Chevy together. Because and Chevy Chase was supposedly hard to work with because he was an old man who didn't want to be on set for 16 hours listening to a fat alcoholic pervert giving him demands. I'm sorry. Community, great show. Dan Harmon was integral to writing the show, but he's still a piece of shit. I'm way more on Chevy's side than I am on Dan, and I know Chevy Chase has been known to be an asshole throughout Hollywood, throughout his career, but that I don't know. I can't be on Dan Harmon's side with this. This is the same dude who literally who said he would like fire ladies for not sleeping with him. That's Dan Harmon. So, let's put it all into context, right? In the 2010s,
Here's your thing.
Got rid of it. We were designed by whatever entity.
Same dude, by the way, Dan Harmon, who refused to let the old white man grow in any meaningful way whatsoever and was married to a woman who divorced him and is totally a lesbian.
To hear what's in this range, because you know who's talking to us in this range. The people we love.
He doesn't always succeed.
By
He's
the
rarely
way,
in
Dan Harmon also cucked himself with that and put his ex-wife into his TV show about D&D because that's how much of a loser Dan Harmon is.
the right, but in moments like this, we see there is a kernel of wisdom within the heart of Pierce Hawthorne.
Not only that, sorry, I'm going to go on a little bit more about Dan Harmon. Let me go back a little bit. Dan Harmon also was known to not get any work done. He would show up 4 days late with a script. Dude would show up the minute before filming was supposed to happen with the script for the episode. Dog, he did not work, and he still doesn't work. He's still known for being a huge procrastinator.
We see that
Who also sails off of the good work of other people. Like, where everybody thinks that Dan Harmon is the creator of Rick and Morty. Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland. Yeah, fucking right, dude. Go back and watch Justin Roiland's cartoon, because way back in the day, he made Rick and Morty by himself without Dan Harmon's help. At all. Dan Harmon saw it and had connections and got him in, and then claimed he helped make the show.
there is a kernel of wisdom within the heart of Pierce Hawthorne, a little speck of insightfulness that shows itself now and then, and I think that's why a lot of people even now tend to prefer this version of the character. He was more 3D, more realistic, not so limited to the role of offensive old man. Ultimately, you could sum up this Pierce as a well-meaning but utterly oblivious fool. One who's got a lot of reflecting and growing to do before he'd be able to be a well-adjusted, net positive impact on modern society. But at this point,
I don't know.
I
don't know, because every time, like right there, every time he has a conversation with Jeff, he ends up giving him a kernel of wisdom that only a father could provide. He really plays the father character, especially in episode 1. Like right there, he's talking about the ear inoculars, and he's like, really, Jeff, we're only meant to hear what people from within this range, because it's people within this range that are the people we care about, you know?
seems capable of this personal growth, and we see it here, in little drips and spurts.
That thing some men call failure, I call living. Breakfast. And I'm not leaving till I've cleaned out the buffet.
Yeah.
Season 2.
So you could see how Chevy Chase went from enjoying working on the show to being like, why am I being written into a corner of like cartoonish evilness? Like, just randomly too. It's like, oh, he'll be a good guy for 5 episodes straight, and then randomly everybody will just say he's a dick, and we're supposed to believe it.
Downfall into villainy. Things began to change pretty drastically in Season 2, with perhaps the major overarching story this year being Pierce's sort of villain arc. At its core, this fall from grace happens through a repeated pattern. Pierce gets excluded, so he acts like a tool, which leads to him being excluded more.
Like I said, the only time Pierce is ever an asshole in the show, the only time Pierce is ever a bad guy in the show is whenever, for literally no reason, all of his friends try to kick him out of the friend group or are just dicks to him or just leave him out of something. Only time that he's ever a dick.
and so on. I think we see this fairly clearly in the first
Ask yourself, would that make you a dick? If for literally no reason, because it's shown throughout the show that he's a pretty good guy and pretty fun to be around, yet for literally no reason, they just exclude him and say he's an asshole. That would make you mad too.
first real part of the heel-turn saga, aerodynamics of gender. At some point before the episode's start, the other guys had been playing with remote-controlled drones or something, and Pierce had felt left out. So he barges into this basketball game, which he wasn't there for because he was getting his own drone, and interferes when it turns out his drone didn't bring him the attention he thought it would.
Come on, Pierce, man, this is a school.
I can't control it. There's a little pilot in there.
Stop it!
It's after this that the trampoline is found. If you've not seen this show or this episode, this story may not make the most sense, so apologies, but we see Pierce missed out on that because, again, he was off trying to belatedly gear up for the basketball game he'd missed and helped end.
You dudes ready to shoot the rock after study group? I'm gonna slit your butts' throats. Nice catch, losers.
He ended up being
they just exclude him again for no reason. And they do it over and over and over again. Oh, dude, yeah, basketball, we were playing that yesterday. But today, we have literally no interest in it because now you're interested in it. Like, that's what it looks like to him.
From that initial trampoline discovery, due mostly to his own actions, and due to his actions...
Due to his own actions, he was flying around his RC helicopter that he was excited to show the guys because they all had RC shit, like, a week before.
As well as, perhaps more importantly, their promise to Joshua, Troy and Jeff don't let him in on their discovery. Because of this exclusion, he pries, and upon finding the trampoline, he, acts like a tool.
Double bounce me!
Why are you doing this?
Double bounce me, do it! Pierce, that's enough!
This acting
Again,
out...
to even be included in the trampoline at all, he literally had to follow his friends who just all bailed on him. Everyone else was doing their own thing and with a group, and he wasn't allowed in any group at this point. So he's just out there just like, what the fuck? Why do they keep doing this to me?
Out, as always, comes back to bite him. And this accident leads to longer-lasting, almost season-spanning consequences. This dynamic is broadly the pattern by which Pierce intensifies the divide between himself and the study group throughout Season 2.
He's been a jerk all year.
He's a jerk because we exclude him.
We exclude
Literally.
him because he's a jerk.
It's not always
Annie was
exact.
right there.
It plays out
Jeff
a
was
little
wrong.
differently, for example, in the episode where Pierce ruins the play, but that's the core of it. Pierce's own actions end up damaging his relationships, until at the end of the season,
Again,
the group...
during that episode, every single person is just making fun of him. And this is the thing. They just randomly, out of nowhere, will turn Pierce into this cartoonish asshole for literally no reason. Like with that Busby episode, like there's nothing in the previous episodes and nothing in the follow-up episodes that really say that he would be that guy. I mean, whenever he's making the musical for Annie, whenever she's like, I need a song, and he's like, oh, I'm a great artist, and he like inserts himself in there. He admits to her halfway through, he's like, he has like a brain. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. You backed the wrong horse. And he's like, figures it out and works through it and is a man, even though he kind of cheats still at the end. But that's Pierce. And then in future episodes, they just go, actually, no, randomly for one episode at a time, we'll just make him a dick for no reason. Why? He has no growth. He's not allowed to have growth. He's only allowed to have negative growth in the show. That's crazy.
Group just about votes to kick him out. We'll come back to that, but it does bear mentioning that in the course of this collapse, Pierce does some pretty nasty stuff, like faking his own impending demise to mess with the group, and pretending to have called Jeff's estranged father.
It's starting to seem, from observing the others, that you're using the social leverage afforded you by your alleged deathbed to exact complicated acts of psychological vengeance on those closest to you.
Again, keyword, vengeance. Because Jeff knows that Pierce has been treated like shit by specifically him for the whole show. And so he knows he deserves the vengeance. And yet still, when Pierce comes up and he pulls this kind of fucked up prank on Jeff, what does Jeff do? He beats the hell out of him. He beats the hell out of an old man.
Well, I have to catch a flight to Kathmandu, but I just wanted to say cheers through friends that you made. They're your true family now.
It's not entirely clear why the show decided to give Pierce this recurring antagonistic role. Maybe the show realized, even for the time, Pierce's racism, sexism, and homophobia resulted in a fairly unlikable character.
What are you talking about? First of all, Pierce... Alright, guys, let's rip this Band-Aid off real quick, alright? Pierce was the most light version of racism or misogyny that you could possibly imagine in the world, dog. Like, if you're thinking of a racist or a misogynist, and your idea is Pierce, then you're a little blue-haired snowflake who has no place in society, literally. Pierce was the bare minimum of racist, dude, to the point to where, like I said, he was hanging out with a misogynist, to the point where he was hanging out with an entirely diverse group, treated them all as equals, and had no problem being around them at all, and in fact, wanted to be around them, and even offered to let the black guy stay in his mansion for free when he knew he didn't have a house.
Maybe it was to do with behind-the-scenes drama between Chevy Chase and Dan Harmon, which we'll talk more about later. Either way, though, this villainy...
By the way, again, I'll say it, I'm reiterating it, Dan Harmon was 100% in the wrong. 100%.
Kind of works for the show. Episodes which pit the group against Pierce, such as Advanced Dungeons & Dragons or intermediate documentary filmmaking, are some of the...
Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, he walks in and finds all of his friends playing a game, and they left him out of it. And they replaced him with Fat Neil. So they're saying that this random fat guy is better to have around than their friend, Pierce.
The show's best.
That's how he sees
because this antagonism is more developed, more natural than, say, Napoleon Chang or the Air Conditioner Repair School.
No, Air Conditioner Repair School was one of the greatest moments. I loved this whole thing. I am the truest repairman! I love that. I don't care what you say, it was great.
Conflict is more engaging. The whole time, this villainy isn't constant. Pierce does have some nice positive moments in Season 2.
True.
All right, where are we? Christmas train?
Yeah, here's the thing, too. This happened, the Christmas episode happened before the D&D episode. So during the Christmas episode, Pierce is the only one who's willing to actually fully play along and be in the world and role play with it, right? Like, there's a moment where Troy and Pierce are walking side by side inside the Cave of Frozen Memories. And Troy says, wow, it's really cave-like in here. And Pierce says, what do you mean cave-like? It's a cave. Because he's the only one willing to play along. He comes back to help his friend Abed here, partially because he's lonely, and another part because he wants to help his friend. Even though his friend is Middle Eastern, supposedly he's a racist, and but we're supposed to believe he's this racist, evil man who comes back to help his Middle Eastern friend get through a crisis. And also, we're supposed to expect that he would be, we should exclude him from D&D when he's shown to be the most apt role player in the entire group, besides for maybe Abed.
I didn't want to go home. It's depressing there this time of year.
But generally, he stops growing.
That's the other thing. Pierce has lost in Season 2, and I think at the end of Season 1, beginning of Season 2, he loses his mom. And then he loses his dad as well, by actually Jeff Winger killing him. So Pierce, and he didn't even like his dad. He has huge daddy issues. And then he loses his father. He has no brothers, no sisters, nobody close to him in his life. No kids. All his ex-wives hate him. Dude has nobody in his entire life at all. And he craves that connection as an older man. And is constantly excluded and treated like a piece of shit because he's old and doesn't understand the ways of the future yet. And he's willing to learn. In fact, there's another episode where they traded him, quote unquote, a bunch of different racist or misogynist terms. And whenever he says something, I don't even remember what he says, but then they go, well, oh man, you can't say that. And they tell him, he traded the terms. And he goes, yeah, I really got Jewish person out of that one. Like, he's willing to try to learn. Clearly the character is, but Dan Harmon clearly had a personal beef with Chevy Chase and would not let his character grow at all.
Empathizing with others' experiences. So even if this isn't a total heel turn, it does seem in many ways to be the downfall of that original Pierce. All this eventually comes to a head when he's pretty much kicked out of the group before speedrunning.
I shapeshift Neil's character. What do you shapeshift him into? fat.
A redemption arc in the finale's paintball extravaganza, but the season ends with him seemingly poised to leave for good. Season 3, Curmudgeon and Punching Bag.
We have parted ways with our closest, oldest, craziest, most racist, oldest, elderly, crazy friend. And he's not coming back.
I'm back.
Yeah, he's back in Season 3, with a lot of the rough edges shaved off.
So
the whole
Season
first
3 where his
episode sort
dad
of
dies.
functions to rehabilitate the character. Jeff wants him to stay out of the group.
I hope we did the right thing about
So
Pierce.
basically, when his dad dies, his dad finally comes back, gets re-involved with Pierce's life, and then immediately gets killed by his best friend.
He really seems like he's changed.
What are you, nuts? That's what he wants you to think. Trust me, we're better off without him.
But this episode flips that pattern of
Yes.
exclusion around.
Also, this is another moment where you can just show that Pierce is clearly a good person and that the writer had a problem with the actor. Because Pierce here, he ends up getting switched out with Jeff. Jeff ends up becoming excluded for the first time. Jeff is on the outside, and he does some crazy, wild shit, and he is even accidentally racist at one point by picking up a picture and thinking, without really looking at it, and thinking that it looked like someone else because there was a black guy on the picture. So they all accuse him of being racist and everything because they're little snowflakes. And Pierce jumps on the sword, tells everybody a straight up lie that it is actually his fault that Jeff got kicked out. It is actually all him, and he paid off the professor. Jeff knows this to be a lie because, he can't be bought. The professor can't be bought. But Pierce does this, and everybody turns on him, immediately tries to kick him out, at which point Jeff is the only one to even stick up for him there. And it's only because Pierce is willing to make this giant sacrifice of literally losing his entire friend group so that this guy who's younger than him, who again, he's basically been a surrogate father to, is able to actually have a good time and actually able to have the things that he didn't.
Putting Jeff in the role Pierce had played last year. This whole thing makes Pierce look a lot better by comparison, especially since it kickstarted Season 3's habit of over-exaggerating its characterization.
Well, it took Jeff one episode of being left out to literally come in and swing an axe at the table and become a racist, apparently. It took Jeff one episode of that. For Pierce, it took 2 seasons. Just saying.
The episode concludes by critiquing the process of exclusion itself, rather than any personal actions or responses Pierce or Jeff take before or during this process, which largely works as a route back to normalcy, but to me feels maybe a little too simplistic. We see a similar thing a few episodes later in the episode Advanced Gay. The introduction of Pierce's dad, who out the worst spritter by a country mile, pushes us to look at Pierce with a more sympathetic eye.
This is the thing. His father, Cornelius Hawthorne, he is actual racism. Hey, he is, dude. He is actual racism. Pierce is barely. I mean, I would not consider Pierce Hawthorne's character to be either a racist or a misogynist at all. He's just a dude trying to fit in.
Father, we see the roots of his dysfunctions, and the idea of Pierce as a semi-successful, if privileged, and out-of-touch businessman is well and truly put to rest. Hawthorne Wipe's success had very little to do
and I
with
forgot to say, during the theater episode where he comes in and he's just randomly a dick, again, excluded. He's the only person in the entire play that actually wants to even be there. The only one that wants to be involved. Everyone else is just doing it to help Annie, and he's the only person without a line in the play. He has 0 lines in the play, and he tries to just get some lines for his character because he does crave attention and positive interaction.
him. As a result, we see Pierce as more sympathetic, but also as more just pathetic. I never loved the way this episode affected the Pierce character, and I think now I see
love this
why.
episode.
It takes away some of the blame for the way he acts, but it also takes away a lot of the character's sense of agency.
Oops.
We no longer
What are you
understand
talking about? Pierce, they built up to this for the entire time, literally. They spent seasons building up to Pierce's father issues and the fact that his father was like a heartless, evil man who cared literally nothing for his child and only for his business.
His more repulsive traits as personal flaws he's responsible for, but
They've
as
also literally spent the entire time building up that all of his flaws are due to his horrible relationship with his dad and not learning anything as a kid from him. Like, they literally spend entire episodes about it, like the theater episode that we were just talking about, where his dad, there's a flashback or whatever where his dad is doing like I'm here with my son Pierce. He's doing a commercial. And then Pierce, the actual Pierce, runs in and goes, I sure am, Dad, or whatever he says. And he tells him, get out of here. You failed at your audition. I'm going to pretend this other kid is my kid because you were not good enough. And then he looks at him, asks the kid, what's your name? The kid says Nigel, and he says, Nigel, your father must be very proud of you. Like, they've been building this up for seasons. Don't even.
Direct results of a shoddy and sheltered upbringing. When it comes to that cycle of exclusion and misbehavior, this development is interesting.
It's also weird how he said in season 1, his character flaws came from his shoddy and sheltered upbringing. And then now he's saying that it's not cool that this episode brought up that his character flaws are from his shoddy and sheltered upbringing. I don't know why there's so many YouTubers that do this. Since I've been reacting, I've been noticing this more and more, where a YouTuber will make a point and then I guess expect you to forget it within 5 minutes when they make the exact opposite point.
For the kind of chicken and egg dynamic it brings in, but this new understanding of Pierce as an elderly child, stuck in some sort of arrested development, does maybe cheapen his earlier issues, because now there's an excuse. This Pierce has a reason he didn't change his ways, break that cycle back in Season 2. The original version of this character didn't. It works to reintegrate Pierce into the core cast and into our sympathies, but it does pay a cost to do so. Yeah. Otherwise, these two episodes do work pretty well on the Pierce front, largely because they develop the Jeff-Pierce relationship, and that's always been one of the best aspects of this character, one we'll talk more about soon. For the rest of the season, Pierce kind of settles into the role of the old, curmudgeonly punching bag. He's kind of at peace with it now, though. The flip side of the fact that he's mostly stopped actively trying to develop or grow is that he's more at peace with his age, and his role as elder statesman, so to speak. So there's less friction which arises from attempts to seem youthful or cool. No, after that whole Season 2 ordeal, it seems like Pierce is just happy to be there. Largely, the show seems happy to have him there.
The thing is, Pierce was always just happy to be there. The problem is that he wasn't always allowed to be there.
There too. For instance, I think there's a bit of a shift away from the more offensive Pierce gags to jokes at the expense of his age.
Come on, it wasn't all bad. I was there longer than anybody, and I'm fine. How are you? Why do you ask? 3:30.
Uh-oh. But from a writing perspective, this perennial role as the butt of the joke may have come from an emotional place as much as an artistic one. Dan Harmon and Chevy Chase famously didn't really get along during this general time frame.
Which again, Dan Harmon was known, especially on the set of Community, to show up late, to rewrite scripts constantly and do not even really care, just half-ass it. He was known to be drunk on set and just drunk all the time. He would hit on women, and then when they turned him down, refuse them work. Like, Dan Harmon, and again, he, during a Christmas party, had all the actors get around and yell, fuck Chevy Chase. Like, Dan Harmon was not I don't know why everybody plays Dan Harmon as the hero in this story. You don't have to like Chevy Chase to realize that Dan Harmon was a sadistic asshole in this moment. For real.
The latter, for instance, leaving long, sweary voicemail rants for the former, and the former then going on to play one publicly on stage.
Yes, he went on stage, played it for everybody, and posted it onto the internet for everybody to see.
Chevy also didn't like the shooting schedule, and on one occasion just didn't show up for a crucial scene. So it had to be cut. In any case, there's rumors that Harmon's treatment of Chase's character was influenced by these events, so maybe there's more to Pierce's new status as Greendale's resident punching bag than meets the eye. Yeah. Season 3 Pierce does end on a kind of positive note, though.
This place has made you so gay.
Hey, don't use gay as a derogatory term. Booyah, good person.
That's such a gay moment. It really is.
Not much, but it's something.
Oh, man.
So maybe the Pierce of Season 1 is...
You know some 23-year-old blue-haired fucking freak wrote that scene and thought that they were just so smart and clever and cool for writing that. Booyah, good person. God, millennial-ass writing. Holy shit.
Still kind of visible here. Season 4. 1 step forward, 3 steps back. Aha, the gas leak year. I bet you're ready for me to lambast Season 4 and its take on Pierce, but...
I think Season 4 was the last good season of, like, the last truly great season of Community. I know people want to bash on it and everything, but it was the last season that had all the characters. And when Dan Harmon came back, sure, some of the writing style came back, but you also lost all the best characters. You lost... This is very telling, right? Is that everybody wants to talk shit on Chevy Chase for the sake of Dan Harmon. and say Dan Harmon was a hero. But everybody stayed when Dan Harmon left. 3 of the main characters all left when Dan Harmon came back. The lady who played Shirley left. The Troy left, and Pierce left. They all 3 left when Dan Harmon came back. Now, is that a coincidence, or was Dan Harmon just so fucking horrible to work with that they literally didn't even want to do it anymore?
Going to. I think he's actually pretty good in Season 4, when he's there, but we'll get to that. There's some fun stuff, and he doesn't totally spin out when the others do stuff without him. There's even a kind of teachable moment where Jeff ends up actually connecting to this surrogate father figure as a result of the group's maybe slightly premature assumption that Pierce will go nuts if he...
And it's crazy that after Season 1, they stopped doing this nearly as much because how much Dan Harmon was a short little fuckface. And they finally, as soon as he leaves, they bring this back. As soon as Dan Harmon is gone, they bring back one of the best character development things that ever happened. Like, I love the scenes between Pierce and Jeff, where Pierce is like Jeff's father. Like a surrogate father in a way. I love those scenes. They're great scenes.
He sees them rolling out the red carpet for the new Whale.
Would someone please tell me why I've been shaving my own face all these years like a sucker?
I think this is as good a time as any to dig into the Jeff-Pierce connection, because it's a really interesting one. As I've suggested, they sort of see each other in familial terms. Jeff's the son Pierce never had, and Pierce is the dad that didn't run away. Various episodes explore this connection in various ways, but I think the real heart of it, the reason it works at all, is that these two are so similar. Remember that fundamental flaw we talked about earlier? Insecurity? The compulsion to be liked, respected, the center of attention. Yeah, that's Jeff too. The difference is Jeff's life wasn't sheltered. He got...
Well, Jeff is young enough to where, and attractive enough to where he can kind of still be that guy, but he definitely sees in his future that if he's not careful, he'll end up just like Pierce. That's kind of the through line of it all.
By being able to play people, and he was great at it. But there's playing people, and then there's actually connecting to people, leaving behind the posturing and the facades, the big speeches. Jeff hasn't cracked that, at least at this point, and neither has Pierce. That's the core of their link. And the way the show develops it is great to watch, and even better to think about. Season 4, for all its flaws, doesn't lose sight of this. But this Pierce, the Pierce who's regained some of the equilibrium we'd really not seen since Season 1, is there less and less as the season wears on. That's because even after Harmon got kicked from production, Chase kept being difficult to work with, let's say. At one point, production even paused because Chase dropped the gamer world, and his increasing discomfort with the shooting schedule meant he just kinda wasn't there a lot of the time. Some episodes just have him...
It's like he would show up for a 10-hour shoot, and then go home and then be like, all right, come back tomorrow because you were actually supposed to be here for 16 hours, and we need you for 16 hours of the day, 5 days of the week. And he's like, guys, I'm fucking 60 years old. I can't do this. Stop. Like,
I'm absent.
Write me into less scenes.
In others, the character drops in and out of the narrative, seemingly at random. That's because before the 4th season had actually wrapped, Chase had called it quits. He was out. He dipped.
Yeah.
Season 5.
And that's, by the way, because they refused to let his character grow even after Dan Harmon left. Probably residual writers who had Dan Harmon's back or whatever.
And Rebirth. Pierce isn't really in Season 5, not properly. A few episodes in, he's killed off screen, and there's even jokes about how much of a non-factor his absence is.
Do you guys feel weird about doing this without magnitude?
This is, of course, due to his Season 4 departure. That was the real death of Pierce Hawthorne, the true death, and what we see in Season 5 is merely the narrative adjusting to this fact. But now that the production process was freed from Chevy Chase, now that everyone involved had a bit of space from him and his character, there must have been something of a reappraisal behind the scenes.
Here's the other thing, too. There's always one lightning rod in any friend group or work relationship or whatever. There's always one guy who's the biggest piece of shit in the room. And everybody hates him, and it's just fun to hate him. When that guy leaves, when that guy finally goes, the friend group usually falls apart. The rest of or the people who are in the work relationship, they start all just kind of hating each other. It goes from having one focal point of anger to where now it's just spread out among everybody.
Because while Pierce is dead by this point, the show does something kind of unexpected, and resurrects him. Not literally, of course. Pierce doesn't return from the dead. Abed's tracking device proves that, but Pierce does come to have an impact on the 5th season, a pretty significant and entirely positive one. First, at the end of Repilot, Jeff comes into contact with what's essentially Pierce's ghost. I mean, it's
His
a hologram,
hologram.
but I like this hologram. I like the speech, and I particularly like the later hint that Jeff maybe imagined this whole thing. That's an extremely powerful payoff to this connection the show played with throughout the years, and it feels fitting that this moment is, in many ways, the decisive choice Jeff makes to embrace interpersonal connections, reject his lawyering and manipulation, and return to the school and his friends. Next, and maybe more importantly, Pierce's death results in the episode Cooperative Polygraphy, which is one of this
a great return to form, or a great circle of the story, because whenever Pierce is dead, and he has that vision of Pierce, Jeff does. Jeff finally realizes that, yeah, if I'm not careful, if I don't try to hold on to my friends, that I'm going to end up like him. And the saddest part is at the end of the last episode in the season 6, all his friends leave, no matter what. There's nothing he can do to hold on to them. They're gone.
Show's all-time best. There's a reason they picked this script for that Zoom reunion table read, because it's community firing on all cylinders. And even though Pierce isn't in the room, he might as well be. This episode rebirths the character fully, without ever needing him to actually be there.
That was a good episode.
The questions being asked, the questions Pierce left, the way they alternately tear apart and unite this circle is the perfect tribute to this character's weird, contradictory balance between antagonism and true friendship. This whole episode, and particularly the final gifting sequence, captures the duality of Pierce Hawthorne. Someone who could be a massive wanker, sometimes offensively so, but also a really genuine friend.
To you, I leave this bottle of fine scotch, so that you're less tempted to drink this cylinder of even finer sperm.
Pierce would have loved this.
And the fact that the thing that's funniest about this gag is that what killed Pierce canonically was filling up those jars of sperm for his friends. That's what killed him.
This whole mess, the chaos, the greed, and ultimately the acceptance. And hey, the fact that he was, in a sense, reborn like this, kinda makes you wonder. Maybe there was something to that Laser Lotus theology after all.
When a level 5's body stops functioning, it's vaporized in the Temple of Renewal and stored in an energon pod.
So, that's Pierce, in all his infamy. A complex character, a deeply flawed character, but ultimately a human one. A human being.
I'd say probably, I don't know, he's my favorite character for sure. I don't know if he's your favorite character. I was about to say probably everybody's favorite character, but that's not true. Most people, I bet, is like Troy and Abed as a duo or something. Pierce was always my favorite character, honestly.
If you've liked this portrait, this Pierce trait I've drawn, a like and some feedback would be massive.
I like this.
Videos I do.
Pillar of Garbage. One of the real YouTubers. He comes out, he puts out a video. Although I didn't agree with all of his points, I still think that he made them in good faith. And he waited till the very end of the YouTube video to ask for a like and a subscribe. That's really big. I like that. This guy, guess what? He's getting a like and he's getting a subscribe. Hell yeah, dude. Because I'm so sick of seeing it the first 5 minutes. Beg for a like or subscribe. Beg to join my Patreon. Nah, get out of here with that shit. This is a really good video. I like this a lot. But honestly, I can't agree with most of it because I do think that Pierce was just treated like shit. And specifically Chevy Chase was treated like shit. Even though he's known to be an asshole, I feel like Dan Harmon is definitely known to be a bigger one, personally.